Hey guys, this is Chris, and this is the third video in my YouTube series of TypeScript and how to use TypeScript. And today I want to talk about two really cool features of TypeScript that I particularly love, are two of my favorite features of TypeScript, and that save me a lot of time while I'm coding and debugging, and save me basically from making stupid mistakes in my code. Now, JavaScript is what's called a dynamically typed language. And if you're not familiar with the differences between a dynamically typed language, you're probably used to in JavaScript, when you declare a variable, so like for instance myvar, and you say that's 1, 2, 3, JavaScript automatically knows that myvar is a number. And then if I change that to, for instance, a string, wrong key, whoops. And I asked, it would become a string. And that's completely mutable, that's completely, that can change at any minute, and that's, that's the way it is, right? And you're used to that. And there's a certain flexibility in that some people love. But in statically typed languages, like Java, you would see something different. You would see myvar, myvar int. Here's your typing, which is integer, equals 1, 2, 3, right? Now JavaScript, it doesn't know what that is because it's a dynamically typed language, but in a statically typed language like Java or like C#, you would see something like that. And that is sort of the design philosophy of those languages. And in those languages, you get certain performance gains, and there's different reasons why statically typed languages are so great. And some people, there's this new resurgence of Haskell and other statically typed languages, because some people are saying that statically typed is the best, and you should never ever not have statically typed. And some people are saying, why would you ever give up the flexibility of dynamically typed languages? And I don't really want to answer that question. I just want to show that TypeScript has static typing, and that it saves my butt a lot of times in debugging. Because if I go over here, right, and I say, okay, so I want to change testing.log to 1, 2, 3 over here, right? So this is an integer, this is a number. And once again over here, I've declared this to be a string. So that is going to throw an error, right? If I do that, first of all, this is going to throw an error here in my editor, but also in my compiler, it's going to say argument for number is not assignable to type string. So you might think, okay, so who cares about that? Especially because, if I go over here and I say console.log 1, 2, 3, it doesn't have a problem logging out a number. I mean, console.log isn't restricted to strings. But let's try something else. Rather than logging, let's create a render to DOM function. And then we'll pass it an element, which is going to be a string, and then an input, which is going to be a string or a number, right? So now, render to DOM, that works just fine. And instead of console.log, and then let's give it a element. And instead of console.log, let's use jQuery. Or not text, element dot text input. So now everything is hunky dory over here, and that makes much more sense, because let's say rather than 1, 2, 3, let's say that we had a user class. And it had an ID, which is going to be a number, and it has a name, which is going to be a string, and then let's create a user, And then let's create a let's say bob.id equals math.random times 100, and then bob.name equals Bob. All right, so now this makes a lot more sense when we're like, okay, so Bob, right? Because that's not going to work here, right? How is, I mean, even if the jQuery.text is able to handle an object, how is that? That's going to look ugly on our DOM, right? We only want the name. So over here, it's going to throw an error and say, oh, okay, so argument type user is not assignable to the parameter of string or number. Type user is not assignable to type number. Bob user. Oh, okay. So, you know, because the render to DOM, that's requiring a string or a number. Okay. That makes more sense. So here we'll just do bob.name. So when you have a large, complicated application, and imagine that this is actually in a separate file somewhere else, and that you're importing this with the TypeScript import, which we'll cover in another lesson, and you know you have a large application, and users are over here, and this other separate part of the application, and you have your render to DOM here, and you're creating Bob and somewhere else because that's actually a promise. And you have all of these things working together. It's really easy to forget, okay, so the user has a dot name, okay? Like Bob has, it has an ID, and you know, he has a name. He should have a name, and I want to render him to the DOM, so I need to, you know, and the render to DOM, imagine that's a separate part of our application, and I want to, you know, oh, okay, I need to render his name, because that is going to save you so much trouble and pain and frustration, especially when you're coding late at night and you're tired or you're hungover in the morning or whatever, or it's 7 o'clock in the morning, and who the heck could expect a developer to work at this time of day? And it's really easy to make mistakes. It's really easy to forget, and the static typing and the type definition that you're getting here is it's gonna save your butt so much and save you from running into errors where you're like, you know, trying to render the text of an array rather than the first, you know, or the text of an object rather than, you know, a property of that object. So that's going to save you so many times, because normally you'd have to come over here, you'd have to save it, then you'd have to reload your page, and then you'd have to look at the jQuery error, and then if you don't understand the jQuery error, you have to Google it, and that's, here you go, right? You understand. Okay, so there is something I do want to talk about over here, which is, excuse me, it's not $J, it's $, which is, it's throwing an error on $. It cannot find name $. And that is the thing with TypeScript, as it is a compiled language, that over here, you know, the browser knows what $, is, and it knows what jQuery is, but over here it doesn't know what jQuery is, because the editor here and TypeScript as a compiler, it doesn't have any knowledge of jQuery unless I either import jQuery, you know, but then I have to get into modules, or what I can do is I can import a TypeScript definition for jQuery. So the way to do that, I accidentally deleted my users. The way that I can do that is I can go over here to my command line and open up a new window and npm install TSD, which is definitely TypeScript definition repository. I'm just going to install that, and then I am going to run TSD install jQuery -- save. And that's going to create 3 files over here. The tsd.json, which has jQuery, and then a tsd.d.ts, which is loading the jQuery, and then the jQuery.d.ts. Now that's important because the .d.ts in TypeScript means that it's a definition TypeScript file where you will find interfaces and modules that explain, this is what this library does. For instance, this document has every single jQuery method attached to it, and there are strict typing, and there are descriptions for every single jQuery function. So if I go over here now, and I add in my tsconfig.json the typings, and then tsd.d.ts, I believe, right? And then save, and I go back over here. This $ is now going to say, oh, $ is jQuery static, and it accepts a string containing a CSS selector, which is then used to match a set of elements. That's pretty cool. And I could go over here to text, and it says, oh, jQuery.text either receives a string, a number, or a Boolean. And it sets the content of each element and the set of matched elements to the specified text. So now, if I save over here, my TypeScript's going to compile, and I'm going to get Bob. So, so that's actually really cool because I am able to get a lot of the functionality from knowing that this is what this method does on jQuery and this is what it's expecting. And that's going to prevent me from making stupid mistakes in my code. And it's also going to keep me informed. I'm not going to have to go all over the place and go look up jQuery's, if I want to see, okay, jQuery.text, sorry, that's not an ad for TopTile, jQuery.text, and that's going to, I have to go over here, that's going to say get the combined text elements of each, blah, 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 blah. Oh, wait, that's not what I want. I actually want to change the text. Okay, where's the example for that? Oh my goodness, what the heck? Rather, I can just go over here, $element.text, and that's going to show me all of the jQuery functions. I can add block, after, Ajax stop, animate, append, HTML, but we're just using text, and it will show me that get the combined text contents of each element in the set of matched elements, including their descendants, and I can, but then that will change because the TypeScript definition file is intelligent input, and now it's going to tell me, oh, that's actually going to change, set the content of each element, and that's a really cool functionality. But anyways, that is TypeScript, strict typing and TypeScript definitions. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and let me know what you guys else want to know about TypeScript.